Class, they do come around fast, don't they? But let our time together be with great purpose and intention. We're just not coming together to come together. We're coming together because we have a purpose. Because in this moment we choose to be a clear and perfect channel for that peace and joy and light that we are to emanate from this place, from this address, this location, becomes the location of the Spirit for us. This is where we are, therefore the Spirit is with us. All right, we're on 3. I plan to go to 4, but I didn't get very far on 3, so let's see what we can do with 3. I was reading 3 in the main book. How many of you now have the main book? You know, I didn't even bring my, yeah, I did. I really, if you're an advocate reader and you really enjoy reading and you're a person who likes to study, I really recommend you reading chapter 3 fully in the big book. It is amazing. It's just amazing. And in fact, I thought, I don't know what else to do, but almost try to read some of it because it's so well written and it's his information that has been given to me. So as I read it, know that it's my information that has been given to me. 3 is on thinking in the mind. Now, I've been dealing with that for years. The difference in thinking about something and what you're thinking about becoming the thought. See, we do a lot of thinking, say, about God. We do a lot of thinking about love, maybe what love is. Maybe we learn, there's, I think, 7 or 8 words translated love in the New Testament, like phileo, eros, and of course the one you know is agape, is the highest form of love in the Greek. Now, I could do a really maybe sound, intelligent message on that because I've studied those words. And I could say, oh, you're really smart and knows a lot about love. And then I could walk out of here and demonstrate anything but love. If somebody pushes that button of something I'm not healed in myself, we just talked about earlier. It doesn't work to train the human brain to just think about things. The use of thinking about things as a human mind is only to direct you into the source or field in which that thought that you were thinking about becomes the divine thought. In other words, different the human thought and the divine thought. The human can think about God, but God can think as the human. Now that's when humanity is going to change, is when God becomes the human rather than being imprisoned in the human. This is why I'm not overly crazy that the ultimate revelation of enlightenment is the within message. God is within, the kingdom is within, Christ within. I mean, that was very important that people started going within and not relying on that which was out there, the old man in the sky, and started meditating. Became popular, and I've mentioned, Shirley MacLaine wrote her book and had a big influence because she had the influence of so many fans and people that knew her, that she was able to really bring back what the 60s kind of started but didn't do well with, and brought it back in the 80s to a more mature 60s people, which was us, and then we started looking for some kind of inner rest and peace. So many of us started things like transcendental meditation and got into meditation classes, and Love You Found Unity and metaphysic churches that meditated and gravitated from going within. But it has ever crossed your mind that what you go visit within might want to come home with you? See, at some point, it's almost selfish to think, okay, I have my little 20-minute time. I have my little garden space, and I go and I meditate and I do that. That's wonderful for you. Good for you. You that do that. You that spend time in contemplation, meditation. You got your place maybe with a candle. You got, I do. Well, I have my place, and I do that kind of thing, and that's really good for me. But that's why I was saying before we came on this thing about where much is given, much is required, and what is responsible for us as metaphysicians, people who are saying that we are coming from a higher state of consciousness than the mass consciousness of those who are who are in a spirituality that's in the confinement of a religion. You're not. You're not trapped into any religion here. So I guess what I'm trying to say is God, intelligence, ancient wisdom, I don't care what you call it, that is innately in us needs to speak to the world, because the world doesn't know what to do right now. The world is in a horrible state of trying to figure out the future and what to do and whatever, and they're not going to get it from the 2,000 or 1,800 years of organized religion of man. I'm sorry, I'll be clear about it, but the answer for us at 2022 and beyond, the next few years, is going to be a fresh new word that is custom to our time. And it's looking to come in. And then we call it breakthrough. It's breaking down. Breakthrough. Breakthrough. What stands at your door and knocks? Remember the little pictures of Grandma had of Jesus with the door? Now, I'm going to show you how weird I was as a kid. For some reason, I noticed in that painting that there was no way to open the door from the outside. He couldn't open the door. The door had to be opened from the inside. Yeah, weird stuff. So we're looking for this mind that was, okay, let's do it. Let this mind be in me that was in Christ Jesus, who thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Keep working on it. I don't want you to read that one. I don't want you to see that by the letter. I want you to say it until it's inside you. Every day, let this mind. And the key word is what? Let. That doesn't mean you got to get it because you don't have it. It means get out of the way and let it. And that's when you'll start having thoughts in your thought system. Call them epiphanies or downloads or whatever you want. But every one of you should start getting some unique thoughts and you go, I would not have thought that. And I really would say get you some kind of a journal or something that you can keep around. And when those things happen, write them down. Trust me, because if you don't, the vastness of your human consciousness will pull it back in and make it unconscious. That's why people say certain dreams, try to write them down because you won't remember it. Things out of 3D come in, you don't remember by using 3D kind of a mindset. You've got to be able to learn how this mind to think through you and as you. Okay. I'm going to move ahead here just a little bit, but I just thought this might help the whole class. And I'm reading it from the big book. I don't know if it's in the... I love the big book because it gives you these little words out here that shows you what each paragraph's about. But I want to give this to you in chapter 3 out of the big book on how does... What page? It's going to be 27, and it's the last... It's under, we're going to read, how does one establish self-knowledge? How does one learn to think for himself or herself? Okay, that's what I'm reading in there. I think if I'm getting this right, I found it and didn't make sure, hold on. Okay. So much, I could just do the whole thing. I'm going to read starting with how does one establish self-knowledge. The significance of this concept to the individual lies in the fact that the light shows the information to be as it actually is, the true form of it. Now, all that is saying to you, there's a place in the mind that does not have a filter on it and does not lose in the translation, but allows itself to express as it purely is in its original state. This is why people who are struggling out there with old beliefs like the original sin thing. How could you believe in original sin? Original sin was not original. Sin came later. The whole idea of sin came over 200 years later, and therefore you won't find it in the originality of creation. Sin was not in the creation story. Sin became a part of how we perceived our human idiosyncrasies. And I won't get into all that, I'll never get out of it. But, that was all the law stuff like that, and how you dressed, how you ate, how you did all these kind of things, became categorized as sin. So the significance of this concept to the individual lies in the fact that the light shows the information to be as it actually is, the true form that it is. Not as it appears to the senses, or as it seems to be to the conscious mind, or as it assumed and evaluated by reason and logic. You can't reason and logic this self that's trying to come through right now. Forget it. You can have all the smart books you want to. I do. I know I do. And it'll give me some smart stuff to think about. It'll give me some smart concepts but that does not activate self-knowledge. It just becomes more download to my head, which I do. I'm not up here trying to be on a pedestal and tell you, I'm telling you my process, and the process will be all really or should be going through. So, it is not assumed and evaluated by reason and logic. Information held in the focus of the light is accessed and evaluated by the intelligence mind in accordance with master codes in the etheric body. In other words, I'm trying to make that simple. All that means is everything that you need to know has been written energetically in your body, energy body. Everything you need to know. And instead of us constantly learning out here, we need to learn how do we activate the information that we have within ourselves. That's what it's saying. And it is assessed and evaluated by the intelligence mind in accordance with master codes in the etheric body. And what that means, if you're supposed to understand it, you will. Even listening to me, there is no way that I expect every one of us to immediately grasp in a state of enlightenment everything that I say in this hour. Nor do I grasp it all. That's why I repeat and repeat and repeat sometimes, because you can't do it just one time. The stuff you believe that you're concrete about, trust me, you didn't learn to believe that overnight. It took generations and days and hours and validation of religions and society and culture that kept that groove, I call it, that deep groove in your consciousness that keeps playing that over and over again. So this is saying that if you want to connect to that information of light that is in you, and that's what we're going to read here. So let's go on. Information held in the focus of the light. Here's the word I want you to get. Focus. Assessed, evaluated by the intelligent mind in accordance with the master codes in the etheric body, then stored in the higher mental atmosphere of your self-knowledge. Now, at some level, you're already doing that, or you wouldn't be here. And now, there's different levels, I'm sure, represented here, but there is some levels of the fact of what's been assessed and what has been evaluated based on what you've been taught in your old belief systems, that you decided to cancel or let go of that and replace it with something came up in you. And you say, well, this is the way I believe. And you have to say that sometimes to friends and family when they're trying to give you this believe on sin or something like that. And you jump up and say, well, that's just not what I believe. Now, when you're saying that, where are you coming from? Are you coming from the fact you read a book about about sin? Or is it because really in your heart you've tapped in to the space, the original space of where there was not sin? In other words, are you coming up with that in yourself? Or are you just parroting something else? A book, a talk. Do you know what I'm saying? I know you do this. I know some things this is just the way I feel. I'm sorry if you don't. And you know, I hope you get that, because I just know you all have that experience at times, that this is something that I really feel. You know, it was like when I was young and going through that and hearing about this God out there that was vindictive and wouldn't love people like me or whatever. I just stuck with that feeling that I knew God wasn't that. I didn't learn that in a Sunday school. No preacher taught me that. No guru taught me that. I came up with that myself, and that has been the strongest thing that has sustained me for the 60 years of this journey, of what I felt in my heart. Now, the things that I chose to believe because other people said it, or the Bible said it, or somebody said it, those sometimes get shaky. You can debate me on that. You can shake me a little bit on that, but you cannot shake me on what is my knowledge and information. When information for daily thinking is self-knowledge. In other words, if you spend more of your day doing the thinking of your own knowledge rather than analyzing other people's knowledge, and this becomes a daily thing. Again, I don't know what any of us do between Wednesday and Sunday. And Sunday and Wednesday. I have no idea what your investment is into the spiritual aspect of your life. And I'm not talking about just reading a book. Somebody said, well, I read a book for 2 hours and that's my spiritual thing. No, the most spiritual part of that would be shut the book and start getting in touch with the book written within. Then when you go back and read your books, you go, oh, that's a witness to my self-knowledge. And at that moment, and that's why we do need to hear things outside of ourselves, because it strengthens and validates what we're hearing in here. Because when we hear it in here, it's more weaker until we are able to hear it out there. The Course says that we grow much faster and better in a group than we do by ourselves. And I believe that. When information for daily thinking is drawn from this area, the individual is doing his own thinking with his own self-knowledge. This is the only way he can learn to think for himself. I'll just stay with the he because it's all over the place. As he draws intelligence, his day-to-day thoughts from his own self-knowledge, he is thinking in the flow of the universe. The flow of the universe. I don't know, but I'd like to think sometimes when I get into that place, I can get into once in a while, where I'm more channeling what I'm saying. It's coming through me than from me. I'd like to think I've tapped into the mind that is the flow in the universe. That's why it's hard to stop. And it's also hard to stop. You just have to jump in the river and float a while. Until some of you start reeling me back in with your looks, like it's got light. They go, oh, time to get out of the river. Stop flowing. Unless he learns to think with this information drawn from the source, he will continue on through life merely acting and reacting to what others are saying and doing. He will constantly be wondering why things always happen to me. I hear that. I hear that. I've heard that more times than I want to have heard it. Why is this happening to me? Why does it always happen to me? I get one thing done and something else happens to me. The reason for this statement, page 28, is because the student is the master. Let me go back. I didn't quite finish that up. No man can be a master to another. This is the last of 27, last line. No man can be a master to another. It's been quoted many times from the ancient scriptures that when the student is ready, the master will appear. The reason for this statement is because the student is the master. The master is a part of his or her higher self. It is what is within. When the student is ready to develop his thinking from the outside, the master within shall appear. That is so important, of why it is important for us to really spend spiritual time. I know it can be a busy world, but the majority of you a lot of us here are retired people. It's not that we have to go punch a clock, all of us. I don't know if any of us do, but most of us have free time, is what I'm saying. And that's a responsibility that I'm talking about, where much is given, much is required. From this level of consciousness, how do you set your priorities? What is more important than spending time with the presence in the secret place of the Most High? I deal with it. It's much easier to pick up my remote and see what's going on HGTV or somewhere. Much easier. But the times I don't, all I can say about that is the times I didn't give in. And I spent my investment of that time into my spiritual aspect. It always grew. Something came out of it. And I'm saying that to kind of all of us, I guess, in that way. How are we doing on time? Okay. I was trying to find, because it was so good, I'll have to give it to you. Okay, I found it. Page 29 in the big book. Sorry, I don't know what's in the little book because it doesn't give the separate divisions like this does. This is what I really wanted to give you today that I think is important. Let me find a good place to start. All right, this is on how do we balance a thought. What happens to the light when a thought is balanced? Okay, I'm going to start up a little bit with the second paragraph. Noetic atmosphere is the highest attunement of vibratory frequency in the individual's mental atmosphere. It is where the light is stored when it is in its clear, pure form of universal consciousness, which is all knowledge. Now, there's a difference to me in universal knowledge and all knowledge. Universal knowledge is universal mind, but when it says, um, when it says all knowledge, it means all the knowledge that has been given to you in the assignment of your incarnation, that you need to live out your optimum purpose for the incarnation. And I guess I should say that again. Universal knowledge is universal. It's universal means it's the thing that connects everything in its oneness, universal mind, universal consciousness, all of that. But when it says knowledge, it's talking about self-knowledge. Isn't that what we're talking about today? Self-knowledge. Do you have within you self-knowledge that you want to bring into feeling? So you want to feel that love that you think about and want in your life, but have never felt it. And you think somebody, oh boy, I'll get in trouble here. But that's why we keep thinking somebody else will give us that. And through them will we love ourselves, without the experience of loving ourselves. You know, it's the old melodrama thing that somebody's going to come and rescue me and fix me. And again, I'm not talking about anything in judgment of, it's just the way the human psyche just operates and thinks that somebody's going to untie them from the railroad track and set them free. And that's why relationships and marriages have gotten shorter and shorter and shorter, because of the fact that what people have been marrying for is very temporal, and the minute that you know that's not going to work, the grass is always greener. So I'm not talking about right here, but we know that 52% of people get married will get divorced this year or something like that. And all kinds of things are going on in that way because they're looking for something that they don't have in themselves. If they don't have it in themselves, how in the world are you going to have it out here? Oh yeah, the ego will give you a honeymoon period. Remember those honeymoon periods? That was fun. They liked everything you do. You like Chinese, that's their favorite. They'd even come to a spiritual meeting with you. And then pretty soon that all began to wear out, and they'll say, I never did really like Chinese food, I just want. And you start feeling the separation and the separation and the separation. So, you know I'm for the most wonderful relationships out here, but let them be from the consciousness in here. And be willing to receive it however it shows up. You just don't know sometime how life's going to show up for you and what form that it's going to take. May not be of your gender, may not be of your race, may not be of your anything. You just don't know. And I think people who get in one lane and it has to look like me and it has to think like me are barking up the wrong tree, because the reason we have diversity is to learn. To learn from each other and grow from other experiences. But here's what I want to get to. I'm getting to something. The light functions in 3 levels of mental awareness. The noetic, or what we would call the higher, or I refer to as the Holy Spirit. It is the noetic atmosphere. The light is in its pure form as all knowledge. Now, you that have been to some energetics, we call that etheric body that comes off the crown that holds the blueprint of our wholeness. But it's the same thing. He's just referring to it as the noetic atmosphere. In the higher mental atmosphere, it is applied to store self-knowledge. That's your personal knowledge. When I said I was standing before that table with all those beings and they were preparing me for this lifetime, that's when I was given my self-knowledge. That comes between a lifetime. That comes before you come here. They give you everything and download into you your master code. They give you your individual I am code so that action can experience reaction of itself and find you, because everything holds your master code to it. And you say, well, I'd sure like to know what that is. No, you don't, because the ego should not know what it is. There's some things you should not know, because I thought too, boy, I wish I could find a way to know what my master code is and what it sounds like and what it looks like, and I could teach other people. And something you said, no, keep it in the mystery of the ego mind. It is applied to the stored self-knowledge. This is why self-knowledge, when used in daily thinking, will upgrade the individual's belief system. A vibratory frequency of the area is much higher than the belief system. In the lower mental atmosphere, where the individual conducts his thinking from outside programming, there's a tremendous amount of his light attached to unbalanced thoughts embedded in the belief system that have been carried over. In other words, your belief system is not matching your innate intelligence system. Okay? They're not in alignment. Or, I like this, at one-ment. You know, your atonement can mean at one-ment, between self-knowledge and the knowledge that you're thinking. As these unbalanced thoughts are balanced through experience and understanding, the light is returned to the noetic atmosphere. Now, here's what I want to give you. Especially you that got the big book. I'm going to read it. One way of balancing these thoughts is by reading. When the individual reads something that he does not immediately understand or agree with, if he will read it over several times and will focus his attention on the words, he will begin to draw from or tap into the light of his noetic system. That is so good. I read books and stuff all the time that I don't even know half what I'm reading. But I'm finding out by doing that I'm actually allowing myself to tap into my higher self, where my self-knowledge is. So let me give you that again. When the individual reads something that he does not immediately understand or agree with, if he will read it over several times, how? Without judging it right or wrong, good or bad. That's the main thing. It's not to immediately react to something that's different and say, well, I don't believe that. That's why you have to focus. That's why you have to contemplate. That's why you have to go through the process of moving from human thought to divine thought. It is a process. And I'm giving you some of those ways of doing it is by, I didn't mean a while ago to say the reading is not bad, but there's a time for the reading and there's a time for the contemplation and the meditation. And I think that you can overdo either one of them. I think you can be overly, spending time meditating or whatever and nothing reading, and too much reading and not spending time. I think it's in the balance of the two. That is what is so important. If you read it over several times and will focus attention on the words, one will begin to draw or tap into the light of his noetic atmosphere. The new thought patterns. Here we are, the new thought patterns. It's all about patterning. That's why we've got to get into this sacred geometry thing some. We got to touch into patterns. If you change the pattern, you'll change everything. How do we repattern? And that's what new thought's supposed to be. I don't know what it became, but this whole term new thought was supposed to be changing old patterns of human thought into patterns based on divine thought. New thought patterns that he will receive from his source may or may not agree with what he's reading. See, don't shut books or put down because you don't agree with it. That's what the ego wants you to do. It wants you to only pick out stuff that you go, yeah, I believe that. Yeah, that's the way I've always thought. Read things that you're not sure, that you don't understand, and then contemplate it without judging it right or wrong, good or bad. And at some point, it will connect, and you'll tap into your noetic self-knowledge level of your consciousness. For this information is used in his daily thinking, it will transmute or relate unbalanced thought patterns embedded in the belief system and replace them with new supporting segments. Now that's what I want us. We've got the language, we got the knowledge, we've got the revelation. But what I want us to be able to do is to be a community that learns how to demonstrate. It's a great scripture that says, I come not in man's wisdom, but I come in the demonstration of the power of the Holy Spirit. Isn't that good? I come not in man's wisdom and knowledge. I come in the demonstration. In other words, I did not start a new religion to replace an old religion. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to bring a whole new pattern of thought. That gives a whole difference to new thought, doesn't it? That I kind of need, that takes me out of the organized denominational side of it. You know, new thought needs to be new thought. And sometimes there's not really a room for a lot more new thought in new thought. Am I right? Mm-hmm. If you get off the new thought bandwagon, then you're kind of out into something woo-woo or whatever. Although a lot of them in new thought believe a lot more than that. I know they do. Okay, moving on here. All right, let's go to our book so we can get you into the supplement. And here's where we stopped. Where we got hung up last week was on the word etheric. Could anybody out there tell me anything at all about the etheric body except Barbara and maybe Rhonda, who's been in Soul Energetics so much? Christy might know. I don't know. Tell me just anything about the etheric body.
One of our bodies around the person, one of the energy bodies.
Yeah.
It's also inside.
Uh-huh.
It's the closest one to the physical, too.
It is physical.
That's true.
It is a different level of our biology. It just, the senses can't see it because it's a little higher vibration than the visceral human frequencies that make up the human body.
For the physical.
Thank you. That's what I want. Bingo. Blueprint for the physical. Perfect. Blueprint for the physical. Now we're going to stay with some of these simple things, but you need to find this. This has got to be self-knowledge, what I'm getting ready to say. You can't take this because of me, but you need to find out and study and get on with some of these other experts who can tell you about cellular replication. You do not have the same cells you had when you were born or that you had 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and most likely 10 minutes ago. Cells are continuously dying and rebirthing themselves, constantly. And the proof of that came in with quantum thinking. Once we got the electron microscope and we got to look deeper into the solid world of matter, it must have been a shock to these scientists of Newtonian things are always what it is until it's not belief system, to find out that there was nothing solid at all, that it was all this energy in forms of molecules and different particles that were spinning around and riding waves, and particles riding waves and waves with particles, and all that was a whole dance that was going on of death and rebirth, death and rebirth. Now I have a spiritual, now this is my self-knowledge, But before I tell you that, can you understand that as you're saying right now, tens of millions of cells are dying and replacing themselves. In 6 weeks, you will have a new liver. And that's according to Deepak Chopra. So I rather lean toward trusting him to some degree, but I can't make that my knowledge as his knowledge. I have done enough to see through. There's things online that you can see through microscopes and see how that really matter is not solid, but it is completely electron, proton, neutron kind of spinning, and what it looks like empty space most of the time, which isn't empty at all, but I thought it was. They thought DNA was in stone. You can't change your DNA. Just what it's going to be is what's going to be. That was the old Newtonian science era that we lived on until 150, whatever it is, years ago, that they started looking and seeing that nothing was solid at all. That the Eastern people of 5,000 years must have been correct to call this the illusion. See, my illusion is, what, 76, oh my God, I hate to say it, 76, and that I've had this body for 76 years, and it may look like it. And the reason it looks like it is because it's been reading the same blueprint. Now, I do love it when people tell me I look younger than my age, which the other day I was at some doctor and they was just shocked at my age. I thought, oh, goody, goody, thank you. And sometimes I think I do. Don't quite look my total age. And I think that's due to some good genes my mother had. But I also think it's this constant teaching that I've been of teaching life and regeneration and all this kind of things. I think that I have fed that in myself enough to keep me at least young-spirited. You know, I never went into a decline. I never thought about, okay, I'm slowing down, I'm retiring kind of mode. I just never felt like that because I'm tapped into my eternal mind, not the ageless mind. That's why I like the word ageless wisdom. We're looking for things that are ageless. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that in. So thank you, Michael. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, that the theory is called a blueprint. And every time a cell dies, it reaches over and looks at the blueprint. If the blueprint is the same thing, it'll keep doing the same thing. But the thing that it does that I will get into to you that are not familiar with it is the redefinition of aging is not the years that you live. That is not true. It is not the years. I'm 80 and I should be like this, whatever. Has nothing to do with that. It has to do with as cells keep reading the same old blueprint. Now remember, in that blueprint, some of your old beliefs about death and dying and all the stuff you've picked up, that this is just the way it is. I watched my mother do it. I watched my daddy do it. I watch it in movies. I watch everybody's doing it, so I'll do it. Everybody's dying, so I'll die. Everybody's getting old and getting arthritis. I will too. Don't leave me out. So the blueprint has to be changed. And I think thinking young, I look at some of you looking pretty good. And I think because you have been under a positive message, some of you, for a lot of years. And give that honor. You know, if it's Unity or Science of Mind or wherever you got it, that was a wonderful bridge for you to go into a more positive idea of yourself and start thinking. And I think it shows up. I think it shows later in your life. So the question has always been to me, if I have cancer of the liver and I'm going to have a new liver in 6 weeks, why do I have the cancer in 6 weeks? Because you didn't change the blueprint, because something in the blueprint is causing the cancer. And he's got some good stuff on cancer in here too, if you want to read it and find out about cancer and where it comes from, all that kind of thing, from a more higher state of consciousness than the old. It just amazes me that people just accept stuff like it's supposed to be. It just seems normal, the normal. I try to watch that, saying, well, after all, I'm 76 years old, what do you want? See, when I'm doing that, then I'm agreeing with the covenant of death. And the power of life and death is in the tongue. So as I keep talking that kind of knowledge that isn't my self-knowledge, because my self-knowledge is I have no birth, I have no death, I have no descent, I have no mother, and I have no father, because I'm of the Melchizedek order of an endless life. I'm not of Aaron's order of law, for the law is death. But the Spirit giveth life. That's so beautiful. I come to give life, and you have it more abundantly. What a great adage, a great saying. I come to give you life, and more abundantly. So anyway, thank you. Etheric. The etheric body into the corporal energy, this action is the mechanics of reversing the aging process. There you go. You change the aging process based on changing the blueprint of cell replication. This action is the mechanics of reversing the aging process. The reason is because the real cause of aging in the physical body takes place during the changes in these energies. One of the questions asked is, how is the physical body an actual extension of the mental mind? Out of the ongoing divine consciousness of the etheric body, the blueprints for new cells are issued with shape, mold, and operate the physical chemical body. Now, as long as you keep speaking the power of their knowledge and not self-knowledge, and you make it a part of your mental consciousness, the way you talk, the way you speak, and the way you think, except when you're at HeartLight and then you think differently. I'm just using that. Or wherever you go, or whatever you do, when the atmosphere changes, then you get into that file and you get all spiritual and you talk all spiritual. Then you go over here and get with the family and you get with this and you go to the party and you do that and you get into that and you're not talking again. Now you're talking culture. Oh yeah, I got to talk culture. You got to be politically correct. You got to be culturally proper. You got to act like the world to be in the world. And all of a sudden, you're not in the world. You're not in the world, but what? Yeah. Practice, practice, practice. We have to practice the presence. Isn't that right? It is from this mold and operate the physical chemical body. It is from this comprehension force field of intelligence through the power of the mind. Now, I didn't say the power of the brain. You got to find that God, spirit, mind is in the human brain in the form of the pineal gland. The pineal gland is what in the brain that can connect you to the universal mind or the mind of God, or whatever you want to call it. That's why the importance is in the pineal gland. That's why we have a pineal gland tuning fork that helps to vibrate what and make it ready if there's something coming in from 5D. The vibration of the pineal gland will grab it, turn it into light and melatonin, and shoot it out as a chemical into your human brain, and you'll have an aha moment. But if your pineal gland is not vibrating and activated, it will not get it to your human thinking process. So you that have a pineal gland, use it. Listen to it. Vibrate your pineal gland every day. It is from this comprehensive force field of intelligence through the power of the mind that the energies of the master codes, remember, master codes are your unique individual purposes for this incarnation.
What page are you on?
I'm on the first page, page 11, but it's first page of chapter 3. Everybody there? The energies of the master codes, the spiritual consciousness, and the complete records of the life stream is embedded in the etheric body. It is your Akashic record. There's a collective, but there's a personal, as above, so below. So you have your own record here of the life stream embedded in the etheric body, are transferred into and become the conscious part of the memory membranes of every cell. A membrane of a cell is the ability to remember. Isn't that interesting? Do this in remembrance of me. Don't forget to come together and be a member. So let's look at that again. A conscious part of the memory membranes of every cell manufactured in the physical structure. In this manner, every degree of intelligence exposed to the mind is reflected into the conscious of every cell. I went to somebody the other day, I was talking to somebody the other day who knows a doctor somewhere in King Mountain that does all of their work and supplements and whatever for the cellular level, to the cellular level. And I like that language. I don't know what that means. I may check into it. But I love the idea of thinking about changing the membrane in every cell. 50 trillion, 60 trillion, take your pick. Bruce Lipton used to say 60,000, now it's 50,000. I don't know why, what happened. But we have a lot of them. A lot of them. How many of you talk to your cells ever? Do you do that? It's a good thing to do. If you've got issues, whatever, talk to the cells. Let them know that they're part of a orchestra. That they're not alone, but there are those parts that will come and work with them to restore them and balance them. Few minutes here. In this manner, every degree of intelligence exposed to the mind is reflected into the consciousness of every cell to the extent that the sound waves are slowed down and coalesced, get this, into mineral compounds that form the shape, size, and consistency of the physical structure of every cell. Now, the original blueprints for new cells are composed of etheric energy, which is of a higher vibratory frequency, whereas cells in the flesh are composed of corporal energy, which is the lower vibration of the physical plane. This is a good example of the great transformation of etheric energy into corporal energy. It is the action in which the cause of aging in the physical body occurs. So what I want to end up with, as long as you are speaking and coming from your self-knowledge, not the self-knowledge, but the human knowledge you've downloaded into the brain, and speak that language. And language gets power to pattern energy. What you say becomes a pattern. Cymatics, you know Hanjianese work of putting sand on a thing and a bow, and it makes patterns, and you change it, and it makes a different pattern. We show that a lot. I've shown it here in the church, I think, sometimes. And I think that's a great lesson for us to think about the way we use our voice with each other. People screaming at their kids. Don't they realize when you're doing that, you are shaping that child's thought pattern? Mm-hmm. And even if we get angry with each other or disagree, if we do it in the right tone, we'll get much more accomplished than if we start yelling or getting high or defensive or whatever, then it shuts down the mechanism of reception. That's one thing I love about Tim. Tim is the most even person I have ever known, and I've known him 32 years. But he's patient, and I've never heard him raise his voice in any level of anger. Never. And he's a much more at peace person and likes himself in his skin. And I think that's the result of that. But what I'm saying, if you continue to do that and the cells are replicating and reading a false, inferior blueprint. That's not what ages. What ages you that when they start replicating at a certain number or level, then they chip off an enzyme called telomerase or telomere, and that's what ages you. And to know what it is, and I've showed you that, Beth has shoes on here with shoestrings. Now, at the end of her shoestrings, you that have that, there's a what? What's that called? Something that at the end. Why is it on there? Keep it from fraying. Well, that's what telomeres are. They're caps on your DNA, and at certain use, misuse, epigenetics, and all of that can cause people to lose these caps as telomeres, and as they fray, they age. Now, Geron Corporation, when I first came into this in '89, in 1990, they knew about telomeres enough that they wanted to produce whatever they wanted to produce. I think I ordered 65 something. It was a supplement. It was very expensive. To keep that from happening so fast that a human being could live pretty normally up to 125 years. And the pharmaceutical, the medical, everything came down on them and said, one, we can't do that. These baby boomers can't live to be 125. They're going to bring down the whole system. I mean, there was all kinds of reasons. And of course, the pharmaceutical wanted to keep it coming, and all kinds of medicines and all that they do to keep making the billions and billions that they make with research for new medicines and whatever. Not all of them bad, but it certainly isn't primary. It should not be primary for any of us to have to live on 7, 8 bottles of medication. And if we're on medication, we should be working on how to get off the medication. I certainly am doing that, and it's a little scary sometimes if you're diabetic or something like that, because the easy road is to get the surface okay about it without changing the cause in that way. So telomeres, you can look that up. It's kind of famous. I was a loner talking about it years ago. People thought I was crazy, didn't want to hear about telomeres, and then all of a sudden it's all over the place now as people, I'm usually about 10, 20 years in some areas, more visionary. And I don't know if it's just the information I stumble on or I'm guided to or shows up for me, but usually I know it's what's coming. It's what's coming. So our time is just about up. Any question or statements that anybody like to make? We want to thank you that have joined us today, and will join us later online also. Let us hear from you. I'm going to ask you to prepare for your giving to the class. We're at our last week of the month. And yeah, I know, isn't that crazy? And it's very important that the class and Sunday and the class make up the rest of the budget. So please give liberally and lovingly. Things are a little challenging right now with the economy, what it is, and even tuning fork business is really going through an interesting, challenging time that people are just not spending where they don't have to right now with the situation. And of course, fear sets in, and people get in fear. They get into the belief of lack. Okay. Holy Spirit, whether we call you the noetic atmosphere of the mind, the higher self, the universal mind, it is that place in us that holds our self-knowledge, the knowledge that has been given to us individually for this journey through this incarnation. Help us as we have forgotten what it was to be prepared and what the early the early experience of receiving our assignments, contracts, and agreements. That's why the message has always been awake, you that sleep and slumber in the world of matter and illusion. Awake from your sleep and sin no more, because there is no sin. Where when you awake, there was not sin. Tap us in today to our self-knowledge. Let us be guided to spend more time in meditation and contemplation, to become your divine spiritual womb, to receive and be penetrated with higher mind. Let us grow in enlightenment, awareness, and understanding and focus. We ask this in the loving, loving, loving presence of those that are here today, because they love the truth, they love HeartLight, and maybe they love me a little bit, I hope. All right, thank you so much. As you know, I will not be here Sunday, but Connie will, and you all know I'll be good with Connie. Connie's good, so come and support her. It means a lot. It'll be kind of a little different, maybe a little bit of a vacation from me and my style, to have somebody else's style to come in. And who knows, people's different styles reaches different levels in ourselves. So I want you to be here and support things on Sunday. Thank you so much. Have a great, wonderful day and rest of the week. And send good thoughts to us on our journey. At least the hurricane moved out. Didn't go that way. I think it's in Bermuda. Go ahead for Bermuda. So, and I'm sure I'll come back with some interesting experiences, I hope.